Welcome to Automotive EV. My name's Peter Wooding and thanks for joining us. In this session, Julian Wilkins, who actually is our legal commentator for Automotive EV, is going to guide and cover us through certain topics which we need to legally be looking at with the growth of the EV market. So welcome, Julian, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Peter, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And as Peter says, I'm the EV legal commentator for Automotive EV, and I've been working with Peter for many years. I'm also a practicing lawyer and mediator and arbitrator. But today I'm going to be looking at some of the legal issues that are very relevant. As a practitioner, quite often I'm approached by academics, companies, and saying, look, the technology is racing far too ahead of the law. Well, the law is always in catch-up. And the law is not a fixed beast. It's very much a flexible, organic animal. And hopefully some of the things I'm going to demonstrate today illustrates that. How I'm going to do, obviously with tight on time, and each point I'm raising is a subject in its own right, and hopefully through Automotive EV we will be coming back to this in columns and future events and sessions, but today is just sort of like a little taster. I'll start with the UK market, and then I'll focus on the wider area of EU and worldwide developments and how they hopefully interrelate and cross-refer to each other. UK is taking a major stance, well, as has most economies. We were first with G7 to have a climate change act that came in 2008, aim net zero emissions by 2050. It's been supplemented by the Climate Change Committee, which is an annual audit to monitor progress, but also make recommendations on what legislation, regulation is needed to get us to net zero. One of you're probably all aware that this year the UK government have done a consultation about possibly moving the abolition of sale of new diesel petrol vehicles from 2040 to an earlier date. Depending which politician you listen to, some say 2030, some say 2032, some say 2035. The consultation period has ended, and there should be further recommendations and direction on that shortly. Whether we go the sort of Denmark-Irish route, 2030, California this week announced 2035. Obviously, for manufacturers, this sort of uncertainty needs to be resolved soon, but they're saying that there's other trends that are encouraging the EV market, one being just general social mores. People are questioning about climate, also more the tax laws, for instance. This year, since April, company car tax has been very much geared towards the EV zero or low emission vehicles. First year for this year, tax year, no company car tax. Next year, some company car tax, but nothing like what you would expect to pay on a sort of ICE, a diesel petrol. I mean, Nissan Leaf comes in at £0, maybe a mid-range Mercedes, depending on what your income bracket is, it's just about £3,500 of tax. So things like that are going to be motivators. There's the Automotive Vehicles Act that came in 2018, and that created the framework structure for bringing in charging, not necessarily for electric vehicles, but any other form of zero emission, hydrogen, for instance, plus also looking at the automotive autonomous driving vehicles. It's a framework. It's going to be supported by regulation. It's still one of the big issues for consumers and also for manufacturers is also conformity on payment and charging or charging connections. Each manufacturer at the moment, maybe an overgeneralization, seems to be doing their own thing. How long it will go before we have one standard for all vehicles remains to be seen, but certainly that is an issue that won't go away. Obviously, dare I bring it in, is the B word, Brexit. I won't touch on that too much. set in sort of the emissions laws and vehicle construction standards, it would appear that UK will just keep alignment. We are a member of the United Nations UNEC World Harmonisation of Vehicle Regulations, so there shouldn't be too much upset there. There may be some variations, particularly as the country with the Climate Change Act, that may drive us not to be laggards, but maybe at the front on matters. Just sort of touching on the EU, the 2006 Battery Directive is being reviewed. It's like most things, it needs a wash and brush up, but believe it or not, it touches very little on lithium-ion batteries, if at all. It doesn't cater for things like electric bicycles or bikes. There's still more to be done on matters such as reusing and also extracting the rare earth materials like cobalt and all the others. So what they've done this year is they've done a consultation that's likely to lead to proposals with new legislation or amendments to the directive in 2021. UK has the 2008 regulation implemented the 2006 directive. Whether we will follow suit and keep alignment remains to be seen. My prediction, we probably will, but that's a prediction. But so we'll look out for it and keep a close eye on the 2006 directive. There's still sort of disparities in emission testing. We've got the World Harmonised Light Vehicle Test. America has its Environmental Protection Act agency, and they come up with different results. And for instance, on an I-Pace, I just use it. Other cars or manufacturers are available, but it's you look at the WLTP, the range is probably about 80 miles less than the range recorded by the test done by Environmental Protection Agency in the US. So we've still got these disparities. Another classic disparity, which concerns a number of you in the audience, is battery storage, particularly lithium, which is a very volatile material, as you know. There's still disparities between what Europe does, China does, America does, US. So there are gaps. Whether there will be convergence at some point, we will need to see. Maybe something like the World Trade Organization could be a good driver, UNEC also. So these areas that need to still be looked at. Supply chain audits is very important, as already there's been, we have the Modern Slavery Act, where UK companies have to do an annual audit on sources of labour force. Was it slave labour or trafficking involved? Other countries have been involved with France since 2017, Californian state since 2012. The EU are looking at a new directive to come in for cross members for 2021. There's going to be an increasing area on companies to account for the supply chain. It's already there. There's a lot of, with the ESG, environmental, social governance, and that will increase. That will put more onus on companies, but by the same token, it will add also to their credibility with the public and also reduce the risk of future litigation. I'll come back to future litigation in a moment. Just on carbon audits, and one of the pieces of legislation going through the British Parliament, there's probably over 12 pieces of legislation going through Parliament this year and next year to do with emissions, encouraging zero emission, accountability of manufacturers. The one interesting one is the company transparency, carbon and supply chains bill. Basically, it'd be a similar model to what's happening with the Modern Slavery Act, where each year a company will have to give an audit on their carbon usage and supply in their supply chain. The other areas I mentioned about litigation. Obviously we've had Dieselgate recently, which is going through the UK English courts at the moment. And then there's similar actions, and for instance, Daimler, for instance, just settled in the States on claims linked to their conduct in emissions. I think there is a risk of more and more litigation against the manufacturers. I mean, just to quote Lord Sells, a High Court judge, who says, the old dichotomy between a company's financial success and its environmental profile is collapsing. Obviously, the more the manufacturers are doing to bring in EV, low or zero emission vehicles, but I think there's the risk of historic claims. We've seen it with the oil companies, pension funds and things. One area, actually, just to sort of offset for balance, is obviously for instance, on the 2019 EU emissions, which is setting very high targets for the manufacturers, including stringent fine systems. It does actually refer to the emissions without prejudice to competition law, and also having sort of fair and just transition to zero or low emission vehicles. My prediction, and if you could put 10 lawyers in one room and get 12 opinions, but one prediction is that maybe the manufacturers might look at the emissions and go back to you and say, look, it's getting very one-sided. We're trying to put a lot of money into research, new inventions. There's new players in the market, like Tesla, who don't have the historical baggage of transitioning from ICE to EV. So they may, again, it's a prediction, I could be wrong, that there could be some adjustment on the emission laws to just try and level out the playing field a bit, not to detract from getting to the goal of zero emissions or EV, but just to, is it better to put money into technology and research and bring products to the market as fast as possible, or are companies going to be penalised through a punitive system? Depending on who you speak to, you're going to get different views. Another area which is important to the battery market is the use of technology like AI, blockchain. People like Volkswagen, Daimler, probably, and many others are looking at bringing software technology more in-house rather than relying on external suppliers. Cars are becoming more and more lines of software being used in vehicles. That will continue with the connectivity, certain monitoring services, obviously battery performance and condition. At the moment, GDPR deals with that in terms of data protection, whether there will probably be more rules and regulations around that, who owns the data, accountability for the data, and that will link into cyber security. One of the fears as cars become more and more computers on wheels is about hacking, cybersecurity. There are some new regulations coming in via UNEC to set standards about cybersecurity on vehicles, completely through the supply chain. So that, right from silicon chip through to vehicle in the showroom. That will be supplemented by another regulation, again UNEC, which is to do with the downloading. We'll be able to do updates, for instance, the Automated Vehicle Act 2018, which makes the responsibility on the owner of the vehicle, the keeper of the vehicle, doing the downloading. But these regulations level out the playing field a bit more, so that there's a look at make sure that the software that's being downloaded is actually compatible with the vehicle. The owner is notified, and also there's going to be national audits to make sure that the systems are compatible with the vehicle, and again linking to cyber security. Those rules are going to be rolled out in Europe and worldwide from sort of about 2021 onwards. So that will be interesting to see how that develops, how that interrelates with local legislation. Another area is blockchain. We hear it, very familiar with cryptocurrencies, and that will play more of a role in any supply chain system, and also thinking intellectual property. I know Peter's run some interesting, with the awards for new innovators. I know, talking to inventors and people, is the cost of the implementation of protecting intellectual property, particularly patent law. Blockchain could be a very good device for protecting intellectual property. World Intellectual Property Organization are looking at rules and regulations to regulate blockchain. As our Law Society, UK English Law Society recently brought out a report on things like smart contracts. The trouble with smart contracts is that they're smart so long as the transaction is relatively straightforward. A lot of things that in the automotive world are quite complex and nuanced. So there's going to be more regulation there in time to come, and also it will be a key blockchain and AI is a very important feature of autonomous driving, and also the complete supply chain system. I think let's say the law is flexible and will develop, and we'll try and run parallel with a very fast-moving situation. But there's also this that's going to be slightly behind. And one of the roles that we want to do is to plot the transition, the developments and the transitions on laws, and how they work in practice, and also what manufacturers, suppliers can do to mitigate risks and remain very competitive. I mean, some of the views I've given to my personal views, I could be wrong. Others, but there are certain potential predictions. So
thank you, Julian. Sorry, we're well on time now, and the platform sort of doesn't give us a great deal of flexibility. I'm sure we could be discussing a lot more. And boy, is the legal aspect of things moving forward a bit of a minefield. But thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching. And we'll all see you later. Thanks, Julian. Thank you.
Bye-bye.